Welcome, guys, to another edition of the Fly Fishing Show Zoom series. I'm so excited to have both co-hosts Ben Furimsky of the Fly Fishing Show and Robert Nair of East End Lodge on the Bahamas. Guys, thanks for being on the Zoom call today.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Rob Giannino of Fly Fishing Journeys, and we wanted to set this call up today. And actually, Ben wanted to set this call up today after the incredible conversation we had with Robert from East End Lodge at the Atlanta Fly Fishing Show, when we talked about his lodge here in the Bahamas and just everything that's going on, both with the hurricane, COVID-19, and also some rebuilding that they're doing with the lodge, because you guys were hit pretty hard, as we know, from Hurricane Dorian, but through incredible generosity of a lot of supporters, you guys are coming back strong. And so we wanted to see what's going on down there with you guys in the Bahamas. So Robert, first, if you don't mind giving us an overview of the history of the lodge there in East End, Bahamas.
Oh, sure. So back in 1999, I first went to the Bahamas and I went flats fishing right there near the lodge at another facility. And it was epic. It was one of the most incredible fishing experiences after fishing years and years in the Florida Keys for bonefish and for permit as well. And just had a great time. And then I just got so hooked on the Bahamas, even growing up in West Palm Beach, which is only 50 miles away. And I'd never really done any flats fishing until the late 90s, and it was incredible. And I explored a lot of different islands on the Bahamas, and everything brought me back to the east end of Grand Bahama for a lot of different reasons. I mean, it was, I think, the best fishery, hands down, subjective, of course. It was a great fishery. And so I wanted to put a lodge together in a great fishery at a phenomenal price point without compromising any quality or guide quality or anything like that. So I started working on it in 2007. I got the land from the government, got Crown land, which is very unusual for a foreigner to get. Got Crown land and was able to build the lodge. We started in December of 2009. And we had just completed our 10th year, about to start our 11th when the hurricane came. So that's pretty much how it all started. And we've had we've had 10 great years, very good years, very wonderful patronage from a lot of incredible guests. Met a lot of nice people.
So I want to dive into some of those stuff. You talked about how you had able to acquire the land from the Crown. But before we do that, I want to bring in Ben. Ben, why did you think that this conversation was so important at this particular time to have with Robert, with what's going on with both his recovery from the hurricane and with kind of getting himself built with the COVID-19?
Well, I've known Robert from attending the fly fishing shows. He works with Yellow Dog Fly Fishing and speaks at our shows about fishing the Bahamas. So I've known him for a number of years and knew about the devastation that he particularly faced with Hurricane Dorian, and then with everything that everybody has faced globally with COVID. I just had a conversation with him about how that affected him and the people that work for him and with him at the lodge, and how to kind of put it in a perspective of, it could be worse for some people. Obviously, people suffered and there was death in both situations, which is terrible. And our condolences go to anybody affected by it. But everything has a perspective, and some of these Bahamians have been homeless and without power for much longer than some of us have just been isolated to our homes.
Yeah, and so we're going to dive into that and kind of get your perspective, Robert, about when the hurricane happened, and then some of the challenges you faced after that, and then some of the stuff that you're doing to rebuild the lodge. But before we get too far along, I want our listeners and our viewers to know what specifically the fishing opportunities have been historically at your lodge and in your area of the Bahamas. What can people expect to fish for when they come down there?
Well, the primary target fish are bonefish, of course, permit, some seasonal tarpon. But then there's some other fish that people kind of underestimated, barracuda on the flats, sharks on the flats, houndfish on the flats, triggerfish, the almighty mutton snapper. Chico Fernandez says it's the best fighting fish in the flats. I mean, that's my holy grail, to catch a really big mutton snapper on the flats, and just some other fish. I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. Primarily people are targeting bonefish, with those permit shots, those rare and sometimes not so rare permit shots, and a lot rarer hookups, of course. So those are the typical species.
And they really talk about the Bahamian bonefish as being typically larger than maybe other bonefish around the world.
Yes, that's correct. In fact, well, I think, and I'm not a scientist at all, but there's different species too. So, but
Okay.
we average, like in our fishery, for example, 5 to 6 pounds. I know other areas in the world, 2 to 3 pounds. So we have larger fish, especially in Grand Bahama Island, because it's the northernmost island. In the summertime, it's still the coolest water in the Bahamas. That's why we have such a great permit fishery. So we have a pretty good permit fishery year round, but then the hotter months, the hotter the better. The migratory fish from the south, they come up, to the north. Also, we have the second largest aggregate spawning school for bonefish in all the Bahamas, less than a half a mile from the lodge. So that whole area gets a lot of transient fish that come for spawning, typically in March, April, and May, on new and full moons, as well as sometimes in the fall as well, usually like November and maybe the beginning of December. And the Bonefish Tarpon Trust comes out, and we work with them a lot as well. They come out and study the fish. So we have a very active fishery. It's not just stagnant with the typical resident fish, but we also have transit fish that come in, especially certain times of year when they're spawning.
Robert, what's a trophy fish that someone could expect to catch in a week?
Trophy size fish?
Size bonefish, yes.
We have many people every season that catch anywhere from 11 to 14 pounds. I'd say 14 pounds is the biggest fish we've had caught at the lodge. Yes.
That's huge.
But don't leave fish to go look for big fish. 6-7 pound bonefish is a pretty darn good fish, and
yeah,
a lot of people sometimes want to do that, and we kind of recommend, hey, stick with them.
Yeah, that'd be the one I would catch, right, Ben?
Miss
14.
Miss. Well, if you miss it, you can tell people how big it was. It's up to you to tell people how big it was.
When you get a chance, Robert, ask Ben who caught the biggest salmon in Iceland. When you get a chance, I don't have to ask him right now, but when you get a chance. So we want to. Speaking of that, you did a great job setting me up for location, because I do want to share our screen here, and not on Facebook, but I do want to share our screen on our map. And you can go ahead and show us exactly where you're located. So here's Miami and Fort Lauderdale. You said you have flights coming right out of Miami and Fort Lauderdale?
There we go. Yes. So the nice thing about Grand Bahama, unlike some of the other islands, is very easy to get to. Typically 2 flights is going to get you there from not even most major cities, but from a lot of cities. So we have daily direct nonstop service. So the northern island right there is Grand Bahama Island, where you see the little red dot. That's East End Lodge. We're about 60 miles to the east of Freeport, which is where the airport is. And you have Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Fort Lauderdale is 96 miles away, and Miami's, I think, 120 as the crow flies. And we have daily direct nonstop service from Atlanta, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Charlotte seasonal. So, we have guys that come from San Francisco, Seattle. They're there in 2 flights. To Grand Bahama. So it's really nice. Some guys fly the red eye and they're fish a half day on arrival. So very easy to get to. Also, once you're there and you're leaving, hate to talk about leaving so early, but we actually have U.S. Customs pre-clearance there as well. So when you're leaving, you clear U.S. Customs there, and it's like a domestic flight. That's been suspended since the hurricane, but they're going to reinstitute that hopefully this coming fall. So that's another very nice attribute. So when you fly into Miami, it's like a domestic flight. You don't have to clear U.S. Customs. So another time.
You with us? I think we lost you there for 1 second. There we go. You back?
I'm back.
Okay, good. So this we call Grand Bahama?
Yeah, that's Grand Bahama Island, and it's the Spanish named it Grand Baja Mar, which means Great Shallows.
Okay.
So if you could switch to a satellite view real quick, and you can see, so the southern part of the island is quite deep. But it does have a nice beach all the way around it. So you can fish 360 degrees around this island. And the nicest things are, especially in the east end, if we're already out there, like you can see where the lodge is right there, and we're right there on the southern part, and you can literally jump in the boat, and it could be a high tide right at the lodge, jump in a boat, go up to that first creek just to the right of the little red dot. It's called Rummer Creek. come right to that mouth, you catch a falling tide, and you got the interval of everywhere in between. So you've got these bights or channels, they call them bights in the Bahamas, these 5 channels that cut through the eastern horn of the island. So you always have an optimum tide. Plus, one of the greatest things is, what's the great equalizer in fly fishing? It's wind. You can't eliminate wind, but you can at least mitigate wind. And that's really nice. So, you know, we get the cold fronts that come through in the January, February, March-ish. We're getting some strong, you know, 2 or 3 days, twice a month. In fact, we're about to get one right now coming through. We're getting a subtropical storm about to cut through. But, you know, you can always get on the lee side of the wind and, you know, somewhat, you know, prevent the wind. But it's really, really conducive to always having an optimum tide and at least mitigating the wind the best you can. So,
Robert, how long does it take to get to go completely through one of the bights from one side to the other? And do you fish in the bights as well?
Yes, we do. We do. The bights just, I mean, they're very intricate little, even though there's 5 main bights, if you zoom in, there's areas, and here's a really cool thing about the bights. So we're fishing inside the bights, but then inside the bights, there's little coves, little areas. Some areas the fish can't get into unless there's a newer full moon. So people call me up and go, I don't want to fish on a newer full moon. It's like, well, no, you do if you go to the east end of Grand Bahama Island, because the fish, they're trying to get to the prey species. They can't get to the prey species unless there's enough water. There's not enough water unless there's a newer full moon. Well, we get in there and we can wade. Now, if we're wade fishing too, we're mitigating even more wind. So it's a really, really phenomenal fishery, very versatile. You know, so it's, you know, definitely a little bit different than most.
Sounds good. If you could give our viewers, Robert, just an overview of kind of the Bahamas as a whole, whereas, you know, you start up here at Grand Bahama.
Perfect, right there.
And then you go all the way down. You mentioned Turks and Caicos there, but which is actually not part of the Bahamas.
That's correct. But to the bottom left right there is that one right there. That's Great Inagua. Great Inagua is the southernmost island. It's got it's got the largest flamingo population in the area, in like the Caribbean, just a little factoid for you. And then the northernmost island is Grand Bahama Island. So it's quite expansive. So people go, oh, I went to the Bahamas, or a storm hit the Bahamas. And it's like, it's almost 800 miles from Grand Bahama Island all the way down to the Turks. Now, looking at your map here, we have Nassau. Nassau is a city in the island of New Providence. That's called New Providence Island. That's where the capital is. The Bahamas is about 390,000 people total. About 275,000 people live on New Providence Island in the Nassau area. To the left is Andros, a very well-known fishing area as well, fishing area that's got a lot of lodges. Not as populated as Grand Bahama. It's about 5,000 people spread out through the island. And I want to say about 14 main lodges there. Another area that, you know, a lot of people know is Abaco, which got decimated by the hurricane as well, which is the island, right up there. So you can see where it says Marsh Harbor. The eye of the storm went right over Marsh Harbor and decimated that, and then came over and took the east end out completely pretty much, and stopped, thank God, before it got into the Freeport area and then moseyed north. Otherwise, we would have had a lot more death, and it would have been a lot harder because the city center for Grand Bahama would have been completely destroyed as well, like Marsh Harbor was. But 50,000 people live in the greater Freeport area, and about 55,000 people on the island of Grand Bahama.
So before we get into the hurricane, Robert, you talked about, let me stop the screen share here. You talked about how you're able to acquire the land. How much land do you have?
3 acres.
Okay. And and you grew up, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Florida, but you know, Cecil, who's my Bahamian partner, we became very close over the years. And, you know, with him and me together, partnering together, we were able to acquire Crown land. And obviously with him was the tipping point for that.
Okay.
So, you know, made it very fortunate, but also we employ 14 people in a settlement of 140 people. We don't hire any foreigners at all. There's not a single foreign employee at the lodge. It's all Bahamian employees. So
that was my other question, is how would somebody from the U.S. be able to buy such pristine prime land there in the Bahamas? But you were able to do it because you had a partner who was local.
Robert, how many people do you service at the lodge? How many guests?
How many guests? Right. Well, pre-Hurricane Dorian, 10 anglers. And, you know, there's always a silver lining in everything you do. So the lodge got destroyed pretty much, and I get to make it even better. So now after 10 years of seeing what I liked and didn't like about my first vision, and I definitely didn't get it completely right, I get to make the lodge nicer for the guests, I think. They're going to be really happy with some of the improvements I'm going to make. I'm going to put in 6 single rooms, keep the 3 double rooms, and I'm going to expand it to 12 anglers, put another boat online, especially for peak season. And then I'm going to have an oversized room for families. So the maximum capacity can go from 10 to about 15 is the way it looks. So
How many weeks a year do you operate? 52?
no. So typically we open October 1st. We close New Year's Eve. And then we reopen the 3rd week in January, and we stay open until mid-July.
Okay.
You know, that's really, I mean, why are we, you know, the first, you know, January is an incredible month. More ambient temperatures. Why are we closed the first 3 weeks? It's after the holidays in the U.S. and the rest of the world, and people just aren't traveling. The demand isn't as high. The fishing's great. You know, the nice thing is the fishing's really good year round. You know, we start to slow down in the summer. It does get a little warmer, but the permit opportunities go through the roof in the summer, especially August and September when we're closed is even better because, like I had mentioned before, all the migratory fish come up. We have regular guests. We have a lot of regular guests, and thanks for them. But they come, you know, one time a year, and then they always try to put a permit trip in as well, like in July, end of June, beginning of July. But, you know, the reason why we do close is because the demand does wane a bit. People are going to Alaska, you know, from June to, you know, August, September-ish. And it's good to get a break and kind of, you know, re-up after that.
So speaking of those improvements, where do you stand in the rebuild since the hurricane
Well,
hit?
the lodge got decimated, and we not only do we have a lot of building damage and the landscape was completely gone, but we had a lot of site work damage where we had over 200 loads of these coral rock covering the whole entire area. And most of that was put in the water. It's shocking. It looked like somebody took a shop vac on the whole courtyard area and put all the rocks in the water. So we've cleaned that up. We had excavators out there back in January, actually right after the Denver show. Right after the Denver show, I flew right there because we wanted to catch a full moon with a super low tide. And I'm sorry, not full moon, sorry, to get a super low tide right after that. We put all those rocks out. We've got a lot of other stuff done. We got the plans done. We were ready to go. And we were going to start construction March 27th, full-blown construction. I got the superintendent that had built the lodge before. I was lucky to get him. He had just finished up a big job in Nassau. And on March 20th, the Bahamas started shutting down, and I pulled the plug until we can begin and resume construction. I was hoping to get everything done by June or July. And, you know, one of the biggest obstacles has been for me is there's no power. There's no power on the east end. So after the hurricane came through and decimated the eastern side of the island, a 20-foot wave through the whole entire part, the power wasn't going to be restored. But the government and the power company were exploring solar options, and they couldn't come to terms. And finally, in late January, they decided they would restore the power, putting the cost on the rest of the Freeport residents. That's the only way they were going to be able to pay for it because it's kind of cost prohibitive. And so I don't know the status of it now. So they stopped the power reconstruction. They're locked down pretty heavy in the Bahamas, unlike we are here. So
You mentioned, to put that in perspective, a 20-foot storm surge or wave. What's
yes,
the elevation there?
it's about sea level. So it was, I stay off campus about 400 yards away from the lodge in a little cottage, and my room had 9 to 10 feet of water in it. Cecil, who I mentioned before, my Bahamian partner, his home had about 12 feet of water in it, and when it was done, about 5 inches of mud. Everybody's home had to be completely gutted. Most of the roofs were gone, and most of the wooding structures were completely gone. Like somebody stole them, and there was just a concrete pad there. So,
Rob, do you have any images of that? We were looking at a few before we started chatting here.
I have a,
Is there anything you can share that?
I have nothing readily, but I have a ton of pictures of that. I think. Yeah, I don't have any pictures of it. After the hurricane?
Yeah, I know. In that email, oh, there's the famous mutton.
There's the famous mutton on fly. That's Greg Buckles, a great guest.
That's a big bonefish right there.
Yeah, that's Bessie from Yellow Dog, actually.
Yeah.
He did a hosted trip a few Novembers ago. Great angler, much better than me. And she caught him.
I do have that email, but we won't get into that right now just because it's going to be difficult to come up. But
Okay.
So
So mostly the power has been the delay after COVID affected you? That's really what, because of the COVID, it slowed down putting the power back up and shut down the building?
Well, yeah. So, well, no, I can't even go over this. So first of all, the Bahamas is closed for any international travelers, period, end. And in fact, the Bahamas completely shut down. They're not letting their own Bahamian citizens return until last weekend. They just repatriated 200 Bahamians, and they got one of them to Grand Bahama Island into Freeport. He tested positive for COVID. So the prime minister has now stopped that. So they were quite aggressive, a little bit more aggressive than we were. They completely shut down the Bahamas. And when I say shut down, no essential businesses were open. They did 3 different 5-day stretches where they would go from like Wednesday at 8 p.m. until Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., excuse me. No grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations. You could not be out on the streets. If you got caught, it was a $500 fine. And they really felt like they needed to do that because they were not prepared. You know, Abaco and Grand Bahama Island that were just devastated by Hurricane Dorian, we don't have hospitals. Samaritan Purse from the United States flew over field hospitals, which was great. But that Grand Bahama right now has tents as a hospital. Now they have ICUs, operating rooms, but it's a tent. It's a field hospital. Same thing with Abaco. So, I mean, it was very important, not just for those 2 islands, but for the entire Bahamas. I think they only had 60 ventilators on the entire island. So they shut it down, and they shut it down quite quickly. And every weekend, they're still completely shut down. The movement is limited. The only people that are able to work right now are essential workers. Nobody else can work right now. And you can only go to grocery stores on certain days, and they have very long lines outside. It's kind of like, you know, they got punched in the stomach and now punched in the face after this hurricane and now the COVID. But I know the rest of the world's suffering too. They have about 95 confirmed cases in the Bahamas out of 390,000 people. Interestingly enough, there's about, I want to say 8 or 9 on Grand Bahama Island with a population of 55,000 people. 11 on Bimini with only 2,000 people. And the rest are in New Providence and 1 on Cat Island. And so they're really trying to prevent the spread, and they're not letting any of us. So I don't even know when I can even get over there again. So it's kind of a wait and see. The power company brought crews over from the U.S. to help with the major restoration out to the east. They took them off the island back in March. So I don't even know, you know, what's the game plan on that. It's still a little too early to tell, but I'm kind of chomping at the bit. You know, the biggest issue now is I rebuild the lodge. When are people from the U.S., which is 98% of our customer base, when are they going to feel comfortable traveling? You know, my main goal is to get the Bahamians back to work.
Yeah.
Not a single person at the East End, and I can speak not just for my lodge, but anywhere in the East End, has worked since July 12th. They don't even have power. A lot are living in tents. There was 300 homes that were electrified by the power company. There's not even 10 of them that are ready to be repowered as of a month ago that have been approved by a licensed electrical company.
So it was not only like the loss of friends and family and lodging, but it was primarily the lack of medical facilities that a lot of people really tried to support the Bahamas for after the hurricane, especially the fishing community really, you know, pushed to support them. And there was different ways. You had a way for people to help donate to help restore their lives. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So right after the hurricane hit right away, you know, we had to help. First of all, let me back up. I started the lodge because those people are my friends. Cecil, we're very close. It's like a family. Like the people that I work with at the lodge we're friends and family. We're not just coworkers. And so they mean a lot to me, and I mean a lot to them. And anyway, so hurricane hits right away. We all watched in awe on TV. I got, got everybody together here, all my friends and stuff like that. We went to Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart, and we started getting food together for them. With the help of Yellow Dog and Air Flight Charters, Chris Allen, who donated some flights, we flew emergency food over by that first Friday and Saturday to help everybody. Within hours after it hitting the island, I have a marketing company for the lodge, and him, free of charge, he started a GoFundMe page. And we've raised over $200 and some thousand on that, as well as the Bonefish Tarpon Trust has let us use their 501c3 as a vehicle for tax deductible donations. So we've raised about $300,000, which is a lot of money. But it's not a whole lot of money when you look at the scope of things. And it's been very difficult to even really go outside the realm of the staff. I have 13 staff members, 4 had homes. So right away, what we did was we flew food over, chainsaws, generators, medical supplies. We have a couple diabetics. And then there's some peripheral people that are friends of the lodge. I want to say, a couple taxi drivers at the airport. They do favors for us. We took care of them. Just some other people in McLean Sound, some elderly people, and we brought stuff to them as well. And then right away, there's no place to live. So not only did we have a 20-foot wave go out into the east end, 60% of Freeport was flooded. I know CNN put that that visual map up showing how much of it was flooded. The international airport had 7 or 8 feet of water and is still completely shut down. They're using a temporary building for the airport now, which had only started back in December, and they were using just tents. I mean, it's been quite, quite a throwback. But anyway, so right away we gave them monthly stipend just to, right away try to secure housing, because I wanted to even get housing in Freeport and there wasn't any because everything's been so flooded. So we went ahead and we got them some money. They've been able to secure their own housing of sorts. Some people, the housing was so difficult to find in Freeport. One of the young women that work for us, she's been living, and other people, they've been living in a settlement called High Rock with no power since September. I mean, could you imagine living without any power? Firing up a generator every once in a while. They pretty resilient people. I got my hats off to them for sure. And they, they're getting through it day by day. And, with the graciousness of so many wonderful guests and even people that weren't any part of the lodge or had never been there before. I had a woman from Texas donate money on the GoFundMe page and put a little note in there and said, look, I don't know you guys, but there was people there for me when Harvey hit Texas, Houston, and I'm going to be here for you guys.
Wow.
And there was a lot of that too. So it was really touching and incredible. So, with everybody's help, we're trying to help them the best we can. You wish there was more. You always wish there was more.
Yeah.
We've been very prudent with the money, to say the least. We've the 4 homeowners, we've helped rebuild their homes. We had to allocate a certain amount of money. We couldn't do it completely. 2 of their homes are wiped away completely. And I mean, when I say wiped away, it looks like somebody just took a broom and swept off their concrete pad and left the toilet, and that was it. That was their home. So we've been able to get them pretty far down the road. Not quite dried in yet, but pretty far down the road from the donations and everything like that. And being very, frugal with the money, and also, I'm paying subcontractors and buying supplies directly rather than just handing somebody, here's $4,000, rebuild your house. I was actually going to the lumber yards, getting the concrete block, having it sent up there for them and stuff like that, just so we make sure that all the money goes to rebuilding their homes and stuff. So,
is that GoFundMe page still active, Robert?
It is still active. Yes, it's called the East End Dorian Relief Fund.
East End Dorian Relief Fund
as well. Yeah. So if you need a link for that or something like that. So.
Okay. Well, that's quite a story there. And then you're on track to get far down the road on your rebuild, and then COVID hit, so now you can't get over there. What is your best case scenario right now when you are hoping to get back over there and when you're hoping to be fully rebuilt?
That's $1 million question, because
I had to ask you one hard one.
I don't know when they're going to open it up to international travelers. You cannot step foot on the ground unless you're a Bahamian citizen, and then you have to quarantine in a government controlled hotel right now facility for 14 days. So it's kind of counterproductive if I flew over there and stayed isolated for 14 days. I'm hoping July that there'll be some movement. I needed probably about another 110 days to finish the lodge.
So this year is not going to happen. It's basically going to be a rebuild year.
I can get it open this year. The problem is I need the demand. I need the people to come.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Robert, you've always done a lot of marketing with us at the fly fishing show to get customers there. What are your plans? Let's say you are open at some point end of summer or this year. What are your plans for marketing to reopen and to let people know that you're recovered and back in business, and the upgrades and stuff that are great points to mention?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I've really never stopped marketing the lodge. You know, right after the lodge was destroyed in the summer, and you know, Yellow Dog Fly Fishing Adventures, who's great friends of ours, and we actually co-sponsor their booth with them. We're one of the co-op or the Bahamian lodge that's inside their booth, and where your show's been, of course. You know, and they called me, Ian called me and said, Rob, I guess you're not going to be doing the shows this year. I'm like, absolutely, I'm doing the shows this year. You can't stop the message. You know, I want to spend the money to co-op the booth with you guys. I want to go out there and I want to see my old guests that had been there before. And the talks that I did every day, I had incredible turnout because everybody came to support us, talk to us and stuff like that. So it's been great, you know, and you just can't take your foot off the gas. You really need to kind of keep your name out there. You know, we have quite an extensive email list, and we do send out updates, and we'll let everybody know when there's time to start booking. You know, we actually had a bunch of bookings on for this fall, and we don't know if we're going to be able to meet that. So I think the worst case scenario, kind of answer your question, Rob, is January 21st, that Thursday. That will be the latest date that we will be open for sure. So
it's party time.
Pardon me?
It's party time next January at the latest.
At the very latest, it will be January 21st, you know, anything unforeseen. I think I'll have the facility built, and I'm just going to have to wait on people and for the demand to come. But,
yeah,
you know, really, I just got to get the lodge open for the staff. They need to start working. They haven't worked since July 12th. And, you know, I go over there every month, and I see them at least every month, if not more. And I mean, they're like, they're chomping at the bit. They like their jobs. They were good at their jobs. You know, I opened the lodge with the same people I have now 10 years ago. Pretty amazing.
That's amazing. What is the famous rum drink that you guys have at the lodge?
We got the Bahama Mamas. We do the rum runners.
Okay.
Oh gosh, a Goombay Smash, which is a good rum. And then Dark and Stormy. Which
the
is,
Dark and Stormy. Yep.
Yeah, which is rum and tonic water. So yeah.
Rob, that opening date of January 21st, the Edison show is at the end of the month, and then we go to Atlanta on the 5th and 6th of February. That might give us 2 or 3 days to run over there to the Bahamas.
Perhaps. We'd love to have you. You know, you're always welcome. We always talk about it every show, and you're always welcome.
I know. I was hoping actually this year to get over there, and then the hurricane hit.
We'll go over there and do some video work for you.
Absolutely.
What does a day look like for a guest? You know, what time would they typically wake up? What is the breakfast, fishing, dinner?
It's funny because so many people ask me that, and they there's no downtime. We keep you busy, you know. So first thing, you know, we're in the kitchen dining room area by 6:15. Coffee's there, ESPN's on. Try to keep the news off the TV. Come in, meet the other guests. Some people go out to the dock, cast a little bit. Breakfast is at 7:30. We're in the boats by 8:15. We're gonna fish to 4:15, 4:30. You got to clean up a little bit. Guys might want to do a little ring toss game, play around. We have cocktail hour with appetizers at 6:30 and dinners at 7:30. And, you know, the first night everybody comes in, they see how late they can stay up. And that second night, many nights it's been 9 p.m. I'm the last person in the dining room. And
yeah, wiped out.
Yeah, they're pretty wiped out after a day on the water. So definitely, but it's a good tired. It's definitely a good tired.
Robert, is there fishing you can do from the lodge without going into the boat? Like, is there beach or wade access?
There is. Well, there's several different options, and we do this a lot of times with people that come in a little early. So first of all, there is some casting and fishing you can do on the dock, and we do have bonefish that do meander by, but we do have a little it's near the cemetery. There's a little beach. It's called Crabin Bay, and we'll take some guests there. And there's 2 other little beach spots we can take them, especially if the tide's real good. They can just kind of practice and kind of get up to waist high water and stuff like that. So we like to do that as well too.
So, as far as preparations, how would somebody prepare? What type of equipment do they want to have? Size rod, type of flies?
Well, first thing we're going to send you right after you book a trip with us is we're going to send you a pre-trip planning guide, as well as Yellow Dog if it's a direct book through Yellow Dog. And that's going to have all that information. But really, you know, you want to have a couple different rods, you know, 8 weight and a 10. If I was going to bring just 2 rods, it'd be an 8 and a 10 weight. Now we have all this gear and we let people use it for free. We have G Loomis rods. We're also switching to lamps in, and we have all hatch reels ready to go. Send them back to hatch every summer. They go through them. So you don't even have, you know, because I get the freshwater guys and they go, look, I really want to come to your lodge.
Right.
I don't have all the saltwater equipment. I'm like, you don't need it. You just pay for consumables, or you can buy your own leaders and your own flies.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a great list on our website as well of things to bring. You know, but rods, 8 weight, 9 weight, 10 weight. I'd bring one of each if I had them. If not, we've got them for you. I'm going to bring leaders. You know, so many people come with 8 and 10 pound leaders, and it's like, you know, let's go with 12-pound leader minimum for bonefish. Why? Because we don't want to stress the bonefish out. We want to get them to the boat quicker. Mortality rate stays high, and they're there for another day. Plus, you won't have as many breakoffs. And I tell guys, look, use 12-pound minimum, and then they come back and they go, hey, how'd you do today? And I'm like, oh, I hooked 11 fish and I only landed 3. I'm like, what leader did you use? And I go, 8-pound leader. You know, you're going to break when you strip set, because thou shall not trout set. You're going to strip set. And you can't strip set too hard with a. How's he doing it?
Oh no, it's a salmon problem that I have.
Okay. But so you know, 12-pound leaders. You know, I just use regular mono. I don't even get fluoro. And then the flies. You know, there's so many different flies. We carry a dozen flies at the lodge, and there's really 9 too many. You know, it's Walter, one of our guides, our oldest guide, who's been there for 30 years. Not with us, but he's been a guide for 30 years. And he goes, it's not the arrow, it's the Indian. You know, it's the fly is just part of it. And you know what? The number one fly for our fishery is a McVeigh's gotcha. If not, it's going to be like a manna shrimp or a variation thereof. And it's really not, you know, something in that category. It's really how you're, you know, because when you're saltwater fishing, and I know both of you guys have done it, you know, you cast just a bonefish, for example. Once the fly hits the ground and, you know, the bottom of the seabed, you're waiting for that bonefish to come in that general area. And then it's really about how you finesse the fish, and you're stripping, where you're moving the fly, which you're emulating the prey species, whether it's a crab or a shrimp. And that's really the technique that separates me from my guides. Like I don't do it as well as they do. They get the fish so excited, they just got to have that fly. So, but you know, we have a list of flies as well on our website as well. And also we actually have a tie flying guide. So you can go to our website, eastendlodge.com. It's free of charge, and you just put in your email, and it's a PDF, and it has about 10 or 12 flies that you can tie with the recipes and everything in pictures. So it's actually a nice.
Knowing that a lot of bonefish patterns are pretty similar, what color and size would be your first choice?
We have larger bonefish, like you guys had mentioned before, on Grand Bahama Island. So we only carry number 4s at the lodge. I'll even fish with number 2s, nothing smaller than that. And mostly browns, tans. You know, you're fishing in the southern part in the white beachy area. It's more of a, you're going to use that McVeigh's gotcha, which is still the number 1 anywhere. But if you go on the north side, you do get some darker bottoms. You're going to switch to a brown, like a more of a brownish type fly, which is going to be different. If you go to the island of Eleuthera, which is known for its pink sand, you're going with a very light colored fly. Absolutely. And another thing about flies, which since we brought it up, is, you know, when you come, first of all, you don't need a bunch of flies. Guys come with probably 100 too many flies. But you know what? If I was coming to my lodge and I was going to tie my own flies, I would tie 3 McVeigh gotchas of each weight. This is the most important thing. 3 small bead chains, large bead chain, and 3 lead eyes. And I'd probably do the McVeigh's gotcha, manna shrimp, and then some other favorite color, and a few permit flies. And that's it. You don't need to bring boxes after boxes, but a lot of guys do. Sometimes you can use the same fly for, you know, 6 fish in a day.
Well, the rule is no matter how many flies you have, the one that you have the least of is going to be the best fly.
Absolutely.
Well, you'll be tying for our trip, right, Ben? You get behind the vise. Well, good. It's been a lot of fun to have you here, Robert. Before we close, can you give our viewers and our listeners just some information on how to connect with you, how to go onto your website, how to follow up, and how to stay in touch with all that you have going on social media?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, just go to our website, East End Lodge. Right there, you can sign up for our newsletter. We do newsletters all the time, even though that we're closed because of the hurricane and now COVID. So go there, you can sign up, and then you're going to be on our mail list, and you're going to get all our updates. You're going to know when we're going to be opening, what's going on. Also, there's links for Instagram, which we have an active Instagram page, as well as Facebook as well. The phone number on there, it goes to one person and one person only. It's me. I answer all the calls for the lodge, and I do all the booking for my lodge as well. So if you got any questions, anything you heard today you want to talk about or anything, the phone's with me 24 hours a day. Try to call. Midnight's usually the cap, but some people call late. Please, anybody's welcome to call. I'm always there. Any questions and stuff like that, I'd love to.
I might add, your newsletter is very informative for anybody that's interested in bone fishing. You often have tips that's unrelated to whether it's your lodge or anywhere that someone might go bone fishing. You have a lot of fishing tips and information that's useful to an angler that might want to hit the flats.
Yes, we do. We have blogs, and all the blogs that we send out in our newsletters, they're actually on the website now. So you can go just kind of peruse them at your leisure, and there's actually a lot of good ones. And I think the best one is practice. Practice before you go fishing at any destination, you know.
It's a great point.
The hook set.
Yeah, never mind. Well, it's been an absolute blast. Mr. Furimsky, anything else for our Bahamian friend?
No, I just look forward to seeing you at the fly fishing show, and maybe we can grab a wonderful steak again one time. And
absolutely.
Thank you.
Always a great family.
Great.
Thank you, Robert, for what you do to commit to the fly fishing show. It's always great to see you there. Thank you, Yellow Dog. I know they're a huge supporter of the fly fishing show. We have 6 fly fishing shows coming up from January to March. Well, we kick it off in Denver the first week in January. Then we come back to my hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, Marlborough, Mass. Then we go over to Edison, New Jersey, down to Atlanta, back to the West Coast for Pleasanton, California. And then we finish up in Ben's neck of the woods down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So we've got a full schedule of fly fishing shows. You can find us at flyfishingshow.com for more information on the fly fishing shows. And Robert, it's been great to have you. It's been great to hear about the Bahamas. It sounds like an amazing place, and I'm sure you guys are going to come back and really build an amazing lodge. So look forward to seeing you down the road. Thank you for being on the Fly Fishing Show Zoom channel calls.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care and be well.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.